Now, we can go in the weeds.
Like we haven't.
Yeah. I mean,
Sure.
you took the words out of my mouth. He just looked at you and went, ugh. His hands moved in the air like, I know the word.
I tell you, folks, it's cathartic. If you can get on a bobcat and just tear things up, you just feel good at the end of the day.
You're listening to Nuhaus Knows. You're listening to Nuhaus Knows, where homeowners go when they need to know.
Or just vent.
Or just vent. Because, I mean, Lord.
Feel like you're
I think
not alone.
we spent, what, 2 hours venting before we even started?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
At least.
Yes, so I'm Zach, your friendly neighborhood button pusher slash, I don't know, the court jester, I guess.
Well, frighteningly, you're the adult supervision.
Oh, God, we're doomed.
I know we are. We are.
With us, also on Nuhaus Knows, we have, I don't know, let's start to my left.
I am Erin Michaud. I am the resident overwhelmed human that's just trying to get through it all.
Slash Ralph. Next to her is...
Professor Nuhaus, Rob Platt. I'm your host.
And...
John the Builder.
I love you, John.
John the Builder.
I love it so much. Oh, my God.
I will say, before we get into the meat of things, it has been brought to my attention
Yes.
that people don't understand Ralph. We should maybe address that.
The Ralph in the
elephant.
room?
Yes.
The Ralph in the room. You didn't understand why Ralph is Ralph? Well, Ralph is Ralph.
It's not a particularly in-depth or thrilling story.
No, it's not a thrilling story.
Which makes for great content.
What just happened? I mean,
First of all, I feel like it's important to note that, because, you all hear us, but you don't see it in writing. I spell Aaron like a boy, Aaron. So
That's my
this
fault.
man cannot give me a feminine name for the life of him. Even my nicknames are dudes' names.
So where does Ralph come into
Is from The Simpsons.
it is. She and her brother used to watch The Simpsons, and the one time you could hear Erin really cackle as if something bad happened to her brother because he was pretty brutal to her.
He was
and
awful.
And she would get great delight if something caved in on him, and it always reminded me of Ralphie on The Simpsons. And so
So I've been Ralphie
She was
since I
Ralphie.
was a small child because
but
of
then
The
when she-
Simpsons.
when you graduated college, she's older, so she's Ralph. She shouldn't be Ralphie.
Oh,
She should
no,
be-
you're full of poop. You still call me Ralphie just as much as you call me Ralph.
Well, I'm glad we
Probably,
got that.
probably more information than they
Yeah.
wanted, but I mean,
Oh, I'm glad we got that.
But I got the question this week of, why Ralph? So I figured he's probably not the only one who had the
Yeah.
question.
well, we're in construction, and Erin kind of grew up in this. She was during the summer. She worked on job sites with me. In sincerity, she's very much all girl, but she has circular saw, and that makes me happy. And a tool belt and hammers.
Ethan just bought a bike, like a bicycle,
Yeah.
pedal bike.
Right.
Wait for him?
And yes, and
Don't even go there. That's another episode.
And
He can't
was,
defend himself.
That's true.
Yeah, he's not here yet. And he was asking me if we had the tools that they say that we need, and I was just like, of course we have. Yes, we have
An
those
Allen
tools. Yeah, we need an Allen wrench and a wire cutter, and I think a Phillips head screwdriver was the other thing. I can't remember what the third thing was. And I was like, yes, we have all of those things. They're all in the toolbox. Yes, I have all of the things you need. And he was like, I don't even know why I asked you. Of course we have all of these things. Like, yeah.
He asked because he didn't.
No.
Well, in fairness, growing up, I didn't want to see Erin beholding to anybody. I mean, she changed her own oil. She knows how to do it. Change a flat tire. And then she got into construction. She can drive nails. She can do things. She's a capable person. And people used to actually say, you let your daughter on job sites and she works. She loved it.
I did.
And she's a more rounded person, in my opinion, because of it. And now we've got an industry that was dominated by men, has been dominated by men for decades, well, centuries, frankly. And now women are part of the lexicon. They're in there. Women are builders. Women are tradespeople. Women are throughout the industry. And Erin fits right in. And in fairness, and this is exoneration of anything I have done, when someone underestimates her, that could be a show. It is
I get
fabulous.
a little cranky.
She gets a little cranky.
Get a little.
She gets a little cranky.
I don't like when people underestimate me just because I have boobs. I mean, underestimate me if I'm just prove that I can't, do something. Sure. Like if I prove that I am incapable. All right, that's fair.
But the fact of the matter is, you are a woman in a male-dominated industry, and when somebody, we frequently have clients that will call and they'll get on the phone and they'll say, well, can we speak to Rob? And Erin will say, well, he's not here. Can I help you? Well, no, not really. And instantly the implication is you're a girl and you don't know anything, which instantly gets her cranky. And the cranky, folks, you're not here, but trust me, cranky is a switch. It can come on pretty quick. And the first cranky is when they go, well, we really need to speak to him. Now, it's the him part because you can hear it in bold letters underlined, even though it's coming over the phone. And then she says, I drew those plans or I designed that thing. And then you hear them go, oh. I mean, what kind of oh is that? What? Oh? Oh, what? But it's oh, like, oh, you really have a mind. You don't just arrange flowers. I mean, what? It just blows my mind. No, she is a very capable professional, and I'm glad to have her here. And I love it when people are stupid because we consider it a public service. There's a lot of people in the world that are stupid, and they don't know they're stupid. So we have to tell them. And it's not being mean. It's a favor.
I saw a birthday card the other day for you, and I didn't buy it because it was a little too mean. But it said, I'm sorry I told you you were old. I thought you knew.
That's all right. I got one that said, I thought you're an, no, I was going to tell you you're an asshole, but I thought you knew. And I do.
And I do, so you can't give me that one.
Of course, you got me one that said...
oh, it's the magnet I got
Yeah,
you.
the magnet. I love the magnet.
I didn't know when I grew up I was going to be an asshole, but here I am killing it.
Yeah. So anyhow, we're a family of...
irreverent assholes.
Yeah, pretty much. And I just wanted to make sure that it crossed all gender barriers henceforth. And it's great. So, because it's just no longer a world where a man has to be an asshole. I think women have the right to be one too. So what the hell?
Hey, yesterday was International Women's Day.
I was about to say,
there we go.
That's our message for International Women's Day. Women can be assholes too.
I actually saw a thing.
Cheers.
Yesterday that they have finally figured out that women can be sociopaths as frequently as men or something to that. And a woman responded to it. And her comment was, I just love seeing women show up in male dominated fields. That was her comment for International Women's Day. I was like, oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. Well, now that we have our International Women's Day's message out to the world.
You got a message out to the world.
Now that we have rambled
we are on record. Today we're going to talk a little bit about surveys, right? That's what we wanted to do.
Yes.
So
yes.
I have a bit of an interesting background with surveys because I do have my real estate license.
And these are not surveys that you get sent to like, what do you think about this? These are property surveys.
Even because I do have my real estate license. I'm not currently practicing just because
It's soul sucking?
that I like money. The market is hard, and also I got hit by a car in December, so my brain no worky so well. So,
But he's still real good at pushing buttons.
look, a flashy button, my brain goes ooh, and I can press. But besides that, my brain is a little bit on the Jello side. So,
Folks, you can't see us. I mean, poor John. he really is the adult in the room. And
He is.
He's here with us, and
He just keeps shaking his head.
yeah,
and
he
looking
just bless
down.
his heart. And the one thing I can say to his fault, he keeps coming back. We don't make him come here. He shows up on time.
I think
and
he feels bad for us.
Do ya?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
We're
think.
like his charity. He's
It could
like,
be. It could be.
I'm gonna keep going back to them, and maybe
There's
I can
hope.
help him
He's
this
a hopeful
time.
man.
And I'm
He's
the
a hopeful
charity's
man.
charity, so that's the word. So surveys, right? That's what
Yes.
we're talking about. Surveys. So I was saying I have a small background in it just because of real estate, and I've had to have some clients who've had to do surveys and things like that. They could be a bit of a nightmare, and by a bit I mean like usually it's adds a ton of time to pretty much anything. At least in my experience.
No, you're not wrong. Right now, they do have a pretty considerable lead time.
But yes, we've already clarified. We're not talking about like the surveys you get from,
Survey Monkey.
Right.
Monkey. We're talking about surveys that usually have to do with the land itself,
Your
and
property.
property lines and things like that. So what type of survey for, I actually would love to hear when it comes to building, John, and you have to do a land survey. How does that affect you? First off, that's what does the land survey do in terms for you? Does it do anything for building?
Well, it lets me know if I've got to bring in a lot of dirt, take away a lot of dirt, or hope that I can just balance the site. That's what you always want to do, because it's expensive to bring dirt in or haul it away. So we always try to balance it as best we can. And then sometimes you get creative. You throw a few berm over here, a berm over there. And that's a way to get rid of that
That's a
dirt.
neat construction word for a pile of dirt.
There
Some
you go.
railroad ties.
It's and that's the best part of being a contractor or a builder. It's is working on a bobcat. I tell you, folks, it's cathartic. If you can get on a bobcat and just tear things up, you just feel good at the end of the day. You may have done nothing, but it feels good.
Oh, also, I have set you up to potentially be the hero of a 7-year-old.
Awesome.
Yeah, because if anybody listening has ever been the hero of a 7-year-old, it is the greatest feeling on the planet.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the greatest. So we were leaving the dentist, my son and I, obviously that's a 7-year-old, and
I thought you were talking about Ethan.
he's 8.
Oh.
Let's give him a little bit. And a dumpster was being emptied out, and they were backing up, so it was beeping. And Moose was like, "That's construction equipment. I love construction." And I couldn't bring it to him to be like, they're just emptying a dumpster. That's not really construction. But I'm not gonna correct you on that one. And I was like, I know somebody who has access to construction equipment. And I bet you if he had a job site near us one day, he might let us touch the construction equipment or even let you ride it. And he was like, and I think he stopped breathing for a minute. And he was
Yep.
like, I would love that. So just letting you know.
We will hook him up.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I had a feeling.
It's and adults like to feel like they're doing something very adult, and it's not. When you're on a Traco or a Bobcat, it's just fun.
Yeah.
You're just tearing stuff up,
That's right.
getting dirty, making a lot of noise.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great.
And that's what the survey's for.
Well,
So, but-
surveys.
So the land survey itself.
There's stages in surveys. A survey, first of all, guys, a survey is just a map. It's a boundary survey, shows the boundaries of your property, and it shows where your structure, your house or your office building or whatever, how it's placed on the property, and all the things that are servicing that, like a parking lot or a dumpster or
A driveway.
whatever happening. And that's a basic survey, essentially. It's called a boundary survey, and it's got that basic information. But then you can get more information on surveys. So, and we have to get a lot more information. Like John and I, we get a lot more. Aaron and I, first we have to go, the first thing we tell a client, and this is what we want to talk to you about today because it's a big deal. We need a boundary survey with tree and topographic features. What that means is that the boundary survey shows all the things I told you about before. It's got the perimeter of the property and how the house is placed on there and all that crap. But then it shows how the land slopes, where there's hills, where there's valleys, if there's a stream, things that affect that stream, We need to know where every tree is that's bigger than 6 inches in diameter, because trees are protected virtually everywhere in Atlanta. Trees are protected.
Trees are protected, like
by law.
By law.
By law, as in terms of, so like if there's a land on the property you bought,
it doesn't matter that you own the property.
Yeah.
Trees are protected in the sense of, let's say you decide that you want to come in and just remove an ass ton of healthy trees. And that is the professional term.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John knows that term.
If they're healthy trees and you've just decided, I don't like them and I want to remove them, you can be fined. You can have to pay into a fund. You can be required to replace them in other areas of the property.
With like-kind trees.
Because those trees affect other things. It's not just air quality or those kind of things. It affects how water is absorbed. It affects making sure that water doesn't go onto your neighbor's property and flood their basement or that sort of thing. So that's why they're protected. It's not just because, we're tree huggers. I mean, that's part of it, because Atlanta is one of the most treed cities in the United States. But it also affects water control, how the land functions, and not flooding your neighbors.
Well, see, I knew that trees were protected in certain areas based off of like their function. So like they do in my neighborhood, there were a set of trees that were kind of at the one particular area specifically for helping with flooding issues and to try to help that sort of thing. And so I knew those types of trees were protected, but I didn't know just like in general.
Any tree. Any tree.
Doesn't matter.
Now,
Yeah.
the caveat to that is if it's an unhealthy tree, so if you have an arborist come out, if you have somebody that looks at the tree and they write a report and they say, this is sick, it's dead, it's a danger to your house,
dangerous.
Then you're not going to be fined. That's an entirely different situation because...
Basic rule is, when we get the survey and we get tree and topographic features and we know how the land is sloping, where all the trees are, when let's say we're building a new structure, a new house or a new office building.
Or an addition.
Yeah, or an addition. If the tree falls in the area of the new construction, it's okay. It's because you have the right to build what you want to build. But if it is outside of that, what we call the envelope,
the building area.
Of the structure, the building area, if it's outside of that, well, we have varying degrees of protection. And basically, when you look at a tree and you look at the canopy, the branches, how big the canopy is basically how big the root structure is. So if the tree, you look up and it's got a big canopy, it's maybe 14 feet across, down in the ground, that much ground is protected. And that's the way they look at it. They don't want us to build in there and damage the root structure, which will kill the tree potentially next year or in 2 years, but the tree's going to die.
Yeah.
Unless we get an arborist, like Aaron said, to come out and look at it and say, no, we think you can do this and it'll be safe. So that's one of the many things that surveys do. They also tell us, is there sewer? Where does the sewer come into the property? Where does water come into the property? How do we get electricity to your structure? There are all kinds of stuff that are on the survey.
If there's an old septic tank on your
old
property,
things we got to dig
That
up.
was always
Oh yeah,
a huge
you run
one.
into that a lot.
Septic tanks were always huge.
That's because,
issue.
Yeah, big deal. And the worst of the worst is if you have a stream. Streams are dreadful. And here in our area, we call them blue line tributaries. When you look at the map and you see a blue line, run away. It means
not necessarily.
Not necessarily, but it's, well, you can't, because virtually every lot in Atlanta is touched by a stream. But it's the stream means, the stream means that water is, that's where rainwater goes. That's where there's drainage outfall. And you can't touch anything. They start 75 feet away from the center of the stream. So within 75 feet of the center of the stream, you're very limited on what you can do. They basically say from 75 feet to 50 feet, you can walk around and you can be happy. You can't whack up anything, but you can walk around and be happy.
You put nature
50
trails.
feet to 25 feet, you can't even walk around and be happy. We prefer that you stay out of it. 25 feet from the stream, we don't even want you going there.
You
And
can't
there's probably an
breathe in
armed
it.
person with a dog and a guard that's going to shoot you. I mean, they want to protect the stream because all the vegetation around the stream and they're called buffers, within 25, 50, and 75 feet, they protect the stream. They keep the stream clean. They keep crud from running into the stream. All that vegetation protects pollutants and whatnot from getting into the stream. It's a big deal.
Well,
so all that's on a survey.
And I actually, this sort of weird tangent. When I was in grad school, I was a teacher's assistant for two different professors, 2 different semesters. And one of the professors that I was the teacher's assistant for, we got pulled into a project in Marietta for a stream. The stream is actually, and it may be better now because I'm old and no, it's been a while since I was in grad school. But the stream was kind of failing. The sides of the stream were starting to crumble because that vegetation was failing, and it wasn't holding back the soil because there wasn't enough vegetation there, and it was causing mudslides and all sorts of stuff. And so we were called in with another team from Southern Poly to write reports and do studies, and I actually got to put on very attractive waders and walk down this stream and take pictures of all of the vegetation and the things that were falling, and it was all within that 25-foot buffer. And it's because of how much the city of Marietta around that stream had built up so quickly. There were so many parking lots, there were so many roads, there were so many driveways. It's what we call impervious surface. And it happened so quickly that the ground wasn't absorbing the rainwater anymore. And so it was rushing into the stream at a very high velocity, very fast. It was coming in very, very fast. And so because it was coming in at such a high volume, at such a high speed, it was demolishing all of these plants as it was coming in every time it stormed, and they just couldn't hold up. And so we were having to come up with solutions of, how do we change up some of this impervious surface? How do we build in small retaining walls that are a little further back to cut some of that speed of the rainwater so that the vegetation experts, the landscape architects, can come in and put in native species and bigger trees, bigger shrubs, because the smaller plants couldn't withstand that beating.
So you brought this up just now with having to come in and replant native things and stuff like that. And also, you said that if a tree's in a building area, you got to take it and put it somewhere else. Is that something that, John, would you end up having to take care of?
Yes.
Like a tree? If you had to take it out, would you have to plant a new one?
Yes.
John's the guy. All the stuff we do with the survey winds up in John's lap. But he needs to know the whole point of these surveys is so that John has all the information he needs to build and deal with these. When you build a house or you modify a house or whatever, it's more than just the house. It's all the land around it. It's the driveway and the trees and the grass and the vegetation and all that stuff. And John's responsible for all that crap.
Yep. And when I'm putting out like tree fencing, I have to protect the tree. So you put it on the drip line, which sometimes you can get a pretty damn big tree. And that takes
drip
up
line, what's
the edge of the tree.
okay.
Like
The canopy, where the edge of the canopy where it drips, and in some trees you literally
Sorry,
can see.
I just watched John's brain stop. He just looked at you and went, ugh. His hands moved in the air like, I know the word. I know what I'm trying to
It's
say.
a really big umbrella.
That is a great way to put it, though. You laugh. A tree
really
is an
big
umbrella, and if you imagine the edges of the umbrella where the water drips, that's a drip line.
Yeah.
And you frequently can see literally a line in the ground
You can.
where the water is dripped, like somebody drew a line around it. But John has to put in this fencing that prevents people from walking in that area or machines going in that area.
They don't dig in it. They don't do anything foolish. Because I've heard different arborists say this, but the number that seems to always stick is the 20% rule. If you disturb more than 20% of the root system, the tree can die. And more than not, it will. That's what I've been told.
Now, we can go in the weeds.
Like we haven't.
Yeah. I mean,
Sure.
you took the words out of my mouth because I was going to say we kind of have, because we can go into even more about what we need from a survey versus what John needs from a survey, and before we can start a design process. However, a survey, before you even talk to a designer, before you even think about designing and the information that we need, surveys are important just to know what you own. To go back to what you were saying about, from a realtor standpoint, you were getting those, in the buying and selling process at the very beginning of the journey, so to speak. And the thing is, a survey is the only graphic depiction, the only picture that you have of what you own. Everything else is done
It proves what you own.
Yeah, everything else is done in verbal, written form, words, and that can, for lack of a better phrase, completely screw you over.
What Aaron's talking about is something called a legal description. Zach, you're aware of that, where they put what's on the survey into words, which is a paragraph that no human can read.
It usually is laid out like the 35th district of the 12th of the 12th neighborhood in this. It's a
commencing at this point and working thus in this direction. Oh my goodness! It's
using
like,
words from the 1800s,
yes,
just to get like
it
basic
really is.
thing.
And your eyes kind of glaze over, and you think, "What the hell?" Where in the actual survey, you can see it. You can see the boundary of your property. You can see where your house or your office building or whatever it is. You can see your driveway and your sidewalks. You can see all the trees. You can see how the property falls and slopes.
If you've got a shed, if you've got a garage.
If it's there, there's a picture. And these are produced by licensed land surveyors. These are people that have very, very specific skills that are time-worn. They're tried and true. And they produce these maps that give us, needless to say, all this incredible information at a glance. Aaron and I, or any designer, can look at this thing and get so much information in 15 seconds that we couldn't get in hours.
But more importantly, I think, is they protect you as a homeowner or a property owner. You need one. At a minimum, you need a boundary survey.
And Zach, and talking to you as a licensed realtor, how frequently does a client have a survey?
Oh, rarely.
Yeah, it's rarely.
Rarely. And that's it. And see, the problem is that when you look at it and you're looking at the home buying process, we have a bunch of fun apps now. There's one in particular, and I deleted it off my phone because I wanted to make room for Pokemon Go.
Priorities!
My priorities are straight. No, that would show you the boundaries of the property. I think it was like Snap or something like that. And it's one of those that you could always kind of guess the property lines. Like usually when you're looking at a home, you could eyeball it. But you would run into those instances where it's like that fence is technically your neighbor's and not yours. And a survey could tell you that. But
Yes.
like it was never actively encouraged to get the survey done.
Which is
Why is that?
eludes me.
The reason why is, okay, so it's always in the home buying process, it was always a fine line of spending a bunch of money off the get-go for immediately. And it's one of those, like, a survey costs an extra couple hundred. Right?
Oh, easy. I mean, a basic survey is $400 or $500 for the average lot in town. If you get what we need, which is boundary survey, tree and topographic features, we're talking $1,200 to $2,000.
Right. And when you got into like the mountainous area, because I did some home sales up there and some land lot sales, I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
You have to have them and have to have it marked out. But when you're in the neighborhood, most of the time, the idea was that it was something that you didn't have to know exactly that it was worked in the neighborhood, that sort of thing.
Which is a myth.
Which is a myth. And it's one of those that telling someone, okay, you're under contract for this house, right? We're going to need you to pay $500 for the inspection of the house itself. You're going to need to pay for this, for XYZ. Also, you're going to need to pay $500 to have a survey done.
Why? Sorry to interrupt you, but why aren't we requiring the seller to provide that information? Shouldn't the seller have to provide this is proof of what you're buying?
Not necessarily. It's one of those. See, it's that fine line of what does the seller actively, quote unquote, know versus what do they kind of know. So, for instance, if I know that I have a leak in my house, I have to disclose that put that in the seller's disclosures. But if I am not 100% certain that there is a leak, I don't have to put it down. So, for instance, if I
suspect it,
but I don't know it, I'm not going to put it down.
It's a bullshit gray area.
Right.
I mean,
It's
unethical.
It's unethical. I think that we're at a place where, the old thing about buyer beware is so unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
And Ralph and I get on a soapbox on surveys a lot because we have to have them 100% of the time. Not some of the time. We have to have them 100% of the time. It matters.
And they're required for permitting too. It's not a soapbox just because we think they make our jobs easier or whatever. I mean, we need them for our job because there's no way for us to design without it.
We can't start without it.
Yeah, but it's also a requirement from the permitting authority.
Right. But and for us, it's not. For realtors, it's not.
And that's a disconnect. I mean, that's, for John Ever to do his job,
he has to have one.
He's got to have site plans and various things that we derive from the survey, or he literally can't do his job or give you, I mean, what do you just make up the cost?
Flip a coin.
And we talked about this with John, that from our world, from the designer's world, we think there should be a movement that by law, nationwide, any seller must provide a survey prior to putting it on the market, period. I think it should be law. It's the only way you can prove what you're selling. It's the only way they can be assured that they're buying what you promised. They know what they're getting. It protects everybody. But, and it's getting back to the thing that you were talking about, if you don't know, you don't really have to tell because it could impact you financially. Like the seller, I may have to cut my price because there's a bad thing I don't want them to know about. How unfortunate that is the measure of our society. The fact of the matter is this thing protects people. And why isn't it law? I mean, that's a good question. We've talked to a lot of people. Why isn't it law? It should be.
And it's one of those that so as a realtor, our job is to know what we know and advise on what we don't. So I always tell clients that they are in charge and I can only make suggestions. And if they take them or not, I have to listen. So I could tell them, hey, this land is kind of wonky, like placement wise. You probably want to get a survey done. I can assume, based off of my knowledge of the area and stuff, that these meet the requirements, but I don't know. And whether or not they take it is always up to them. But I think something that needs to be emphasized is that it needs to be included. It just does at this point, because we've back in the 1800s or early 1900s, when your closest neighbor was 2 miles away, they still knew their property line, even if it was just off a landmark. The big willow tree up on the hill, my property ends there.
Yeah.
Now, we're packed in on top of each other, and the lines are so blurred on things, and that's where you get into neighbor disputes on fences and stuff.
Now you've got more complication than that. It's not just a property line. It's setbacks. It's what is the placement of your house? Is your house encroaching on a setback? Is your house
too close to the property line? Is
what
that mean?
Does your house, in combination with your decks and your patios and your driveways, does that exceed your lot coverage, which means you can't actually make any changes to your property?
Right. So lot coverage is another big thing, where it's like a certain percentage of the lot.
Yep.
Well,
and
depending on where you are, we have the larger jurisdiction in the core of Atlanta is 35%. I'm sorry, 50%. you can cover up to 50% of your lot with what we call impervious surface. That's anything water can't go through. Driveway, walkway, the house itself. Decks, even though they got cracks in them, decks are impervious. Versus some other areas that are a little easier, 35%. But nonetheless, the whole idea is rainwater, the only way it gets to the streams we were talking about a few minutes ago is through the pervious surface, open ground, grass, ground that can absorb water. So if you have too much impervious surface, you're affecting the drainage of the area because water runs off of impervious things like concrete very fast, like Aaron was describing before, and fast water tears things up. Fast water kills bushes. Fast water kills ground cover like grass or vines or whatever. It will kill things that hold the soil.
It can also change the way water moves over property, which means that it can, depending on how your property is situated, it can cause flooding of your neighbor's property.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I wish Catherine was here because she would go nuts right about now. And you guys have
She's
heard
our
Catherine. She's our landscape architect, and she is magnificent because her title, landscape architect, is kind of a misnomer. She really spends the bulk of her time dealing with drainage. How does water leave your property? Where does it go?
Basically, we are numbers nerds. She's a water nerd.
Yeah, she's a water nerd. And it's, the whole idea is that the law effectively says your property has been draining a certain way for a very long time, longer than you've been alive. And anything you do that changes how it's been behaving for a very long time, we need to understand and make sure that that change is not detrimental, that it doesn't do something bad, that suddenly you don't turn your neighbor's basement into a bathtub. That's a bad thing, and we've seen that happen. We literally have seen that happen. Somebody
typically with people that build without permits.
Yeah.
You can get creative also with, like, if you're over 50%, you can do things like pervious pavers or things like that.
There are neat things that we can use that we know about that can, what we call, mitigate.
Yeah.
Yeah, trade. You can trade things. It's like, okay, I'm willing to, we got one house that we're designing right now where they've got a bunch of sidewalk in the backyard that goes around a utility building. We have to pull it up because we have to put other sidewalk in, and we're very close on impervious surface. So, and we talked to the owner, and he said, yeah, we never use it anyhow. Good deal, so we can plow it up. The municipality is happy. You're trading. As long as you're keeping the ability for that much ground to absorb water, we're happy. But John, you'll be, bidding that job soon, and we'll have all that information there for you. And, and that's another thing that we can talk about real quick. Well, the cost of a house. He'll say, how much the house costs? How much does it cost per square foot? John goes nuts. You don't know it. He doesn't have any hair. He's pulled it all out.
I did once before.
You did, too. We saw pictures. They were pretty impressive.
It was very curly.
It was very curly. Yeah. You were a curly guy.
I don't want to brag, but it's true.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. it's true. But
he's quite the ginger.
Yes, I am.
Yes, he is. People don't realize when they modify their house or they build a new house, it's not the cost of the house. How much money goes into the yard? The survey tells me how to present the information because, well, John, we've had houses that, the house itself might be $300,000 or $400,000 or $500,000, but there's literally $25,000 or $30,000 more just in the yard.
Yeah.
Things that we got to deal with.
And it's part of the number. It's part of that square foot number, and people kind of ignore it. They're like, oh, my gosh, my house is costing that much. Well, you got a little bit more going on than that.
You got a lot more going on than that.
I mean, you may be putting in rain leaders, to capture all the water from your roof to disperse it somewhere else so that you don't impact around your house. I mean, there's just different things you do outside that, it adds to that number.
And they're pretty labor intensive. I mean, it's frequently it's just a lot of people with shovels and doing very important things, and it's a lot of labor and a lot of work, and it's very heavily overseen by the municipalities because, again, they don't want to see the neighbor coming down and screaming at the city, so the city has to come out and scream at you so that we can all stop a lawsuit because you're an idiot. So a survey really keeps idiots from happening a lot.
It does.
But Aaron was going to a place before that was kind of creepy, and that is...
It's not creepy.
Well, it sucked. It was creepy.
Oh. Different kind of creepy. See,
Well-
now I'm imagining you were building on an Indian burial ground and you didn't do a survey until you didn't find out.
Well, here's what it is. We're in the biz. I've been in the biz for 44 years, folks. I've been around for a long time, and it just goes to show that even after 44 years, you can still be stupid.
Well, you weren't stupid.
No, I wasn't stupid, but I was.
Somebody else was.
Yes.
And you were caught in the crossfire.
Well, there was a property in the family, and it's been in the family forever. It's never been up for sale.
Your
Legit
family?
Yes.
114 years now, I think.
Yeah, it's been 114 years in the family, and it's a brilliant old house. And,
Farmhouse.
It's farmhouse, and it's significant. And it was the last elder in the family passed away, and she left it, and nobody wanted it because it was in difficult condition. And so my wife and I said, we'll take it. We'll take the house, and we bought it from the estate with the intention of renovating it, which we did. So we get the house, and we're thinking, it's been in the family for a long time. This thing's been here for a while. And Moses stopped there once. I mean, it's just been around forever. And, and I thought, well, this is going to be great. We're going to get it. And there's 100% equity in it because there was never a loan on it. And so we'll renovate it. So I went to get everything done, and I went to the bank, and here's where the poop hit the rotary oscillator. It was pretty impressive. Go to the bank, and I'm going to pull out a loan and say, do you got a survey? And I went, oh, actually, I don't know. Let me go back and look through the original family, records. No survey. No big deal. We're in the biz, right, John?
Oh, yeah. Get one.
Yeah, make a phone call. No big deal. So I made a phone call, got my buds to go out and survey the property. Oh, it was ugly. What happened? At some point, the last heir to the property, as she was, she got older, she split the property in two. We did not know. And when she split the property in two, she did it because there was another farmhouse on the original farm that we had moved next to this farmhouse. So both houses were on one lot. She split it down the middle, right? And the person that actually did it, the lawyer that did it, was incompetent. We were talking about legal descriptions a while ago.
Yeah.
We were talking about the complicated. Well, the problem was the survey showed the property, and the survey showed that it was split. The legal description was the original legal description. They never corrected it. And it showed one contiguous piece of property. And you're thinking, what's the big deal? The big deal is the bank technically owned our property. We did not own it because of a snafu, because of an incompetent twit. What does that mean? That means something we thought was going to be a good deal, and we were going to renovate it, and we were going to move some elderly family members into it, which we ultimately did. It took a year, and it cost me personally $18,000 to fix everything and prove we own that land, all because of a survey.
Well, all because of a lack of a survey.
Lack of a survey.
Because the bank didn't perform the survey. When the lawyer sold it off,
he did it by legal description.
they did it by legal description and not by survey.
So when did this sell happen? Like
several years before we got there. And so
are we talking like 1960s or several years, or are we talking like
2000s?
2000s. Right.
We're in the 2000s. And so suddenly we own something we don't own, but we're responsible for taking care of it, but the bank owns it. And the bank doesn't want to give it back because it's an asset on their books because of this schmuck who did a stupid thing. And we had to go through a process called quiet title, which was pretty amazing. And basically the lawsuit was pretty cool. We saw it because it was my wife, who is the heir to the property, versus the world. That literally was the lawsuit. Her name versus the world. So all of you listening, you didn't know this. We have sued you. We did. And everyone at this table, and I'm sorry, Zach, it's nothing personal.
Oh, man.
But we
He
sued all of
his
you.
own child.
Sued my own child. John, I didn't feel so bad about. But
I saw it coming.
yeah, he did. He did. He saw it. But you know my nature, right?
I know.
But we wound up, we literally had to sue the world. And the world, we defeated you. So, just saying. And $18,000 later, we got our property back. That's the kind of thing you need to know before you step into something. And if you've got a survey from a licensed land surveyor, you're going to see that up front. It's going to be taken care of at the closing table with the bank. So, folks, what we're telling you is the importance of a survey through all this crap we've been spewing today.
But we're entertaining.
Yeah, we are entertaining. You need to spend the money, whether you ever plan on modifying your house, if you ever plan on selling it, it doesn't matter. This is something you need to spend the money, order the survey, and stick it in a safety deposit box. Because it is the one graphic depiction that says, this is what I own, and it stands up in court. And everybody should have one, even though the law says, no big deal. It is a big deal. It's a huge deal.
And I'm the picky one. I want the full-blown alpha survey. I wanna
Absolutely.
know every blasted thing that's on that property.
Well, and that's because comes down in terms of like construction. That comes in terms of like later renovations, like you said. It comes in, handy for everything.
It's a big deal.
And the biggest thing that, as a realtor coming into this, that I can say is that is something that can be negotiated. Everything is negotiable.
Yeah.
So when you're buying a house, literally, you can say, if this checks off well, I'll bake you 24 cookies, and we could put that into the contract. Like it's been done, weirdly. So like, yeah. But
chocolate chip.
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. You know, I know I liked you.
Well, I'll do it now.
Are there any other cookies beyond chocolate chip?
Sugar cookies?
I think
sugar cookies.
I'm sorry. There's still
Anyway.
a waste of time. Chocolate chips are like... I'm sorry, folks. We digress. There are things that are important. Chocolate chip cookies are part of it.
I agree.
Famous Amos should be on a coin. I'm just saying.
But it's one of those, it can be negotiated in things like closing costs. So not necessarily the price. You could say, hey, I need to spend $500 for this survey. So can you contribute $500 to the closing costs? And that's something that can be negotiated. It's always one of those that anytime you feel that it's important, which what we're trying to say now is surveys are important and need to be treated so, you can fight for that.
And
you have that ability.
May I say, I think important, and from our standpoint, is almost too light. They're critical. I think we're talking, what are the big purchases in your life? Your house, your car, your college degree. You want to know what you paid for. You want to know everything you paid for. And it's amazing how much attention people give to their damn car and making sure everything's in the contract and it's just right. But a house? Oh, hell, I trust you.
Unfortunately, and I defer to you, Zach, kind of with this to make sure that I'm not talking out my butt. But it seems to me like the reason people...
Odd thing to watch, I might add.
Now I just have Ace Ventura in
Yeah.
in my head.
Where my head went.
I'm glad I'm not the only one. But I think the reason that people give more attention to detail with, say, a car, like you just said, is because they can understand it and they can wrap their head around it. I think there's so much overwhelm and there's so much in the shadows when it comes to buying a house that people sort of give up and they defer to their realtor, or they defer to the seller, or they defer to the bank because they don't know what to ask. They don't know what to dig into because they're so overwhelmed with what they don't know.
Which brings us back to the point of this podcast. I mean, we have fun, but this is a lot of effort. We do this because this is the stuff you need to show. The whole point of this program is to empower you with knowledge. You have the power of no. You have the power of making decisions. And like Zach just pointed out so clearly, everything's negotiable at the time of purchase. Tell them you want a survey. Negotiate. Split it with them. Ask for more time. It needs to be done. This should be law, but until it is, you need to cover your butt. And the only person to blame when you don't is you.
Now I have the Lego movie in my head. I'm sorry. Now I just have hold on to your butts in my head. But
and she is my genetic material. I don't know what to do. I'm afraid.
Yeah, well, fair. But that's just it. The whole point is we're trying to draw the curtain back and take some of the overwhelm out and take some of the mystery out so that you don't have to defer to somebody and say, I hope you're doing the right thing. You can say, you know what? These guys told me I need this. And now I at least have an anchor to go research and find out, do I need this? Do I want this? What questions do I want to ask? And you can be more in control.
Allow me to share one other interesting anecdote that just supports what we've been telling you. I have no fondness for investors. That is property investors. There's a group of people that have been told by late night TV at 2 a.m. when they have insomnia that if you'll invest your life savings, you can make a fortune investing in real estate. They don't tell you that 99 out of 100 go bankrupt and lose all their savings, and one person actually breaks even, and 1 in 1,000 does okay. It's because this is a complicated industry. So we have run into a plethora, which is a poop load, of investors who have gone out with their bag of money and they're going to buy houses, and they've been taught, go buy the cheapest house, go buy the house that's in terrible shape, don't worry, it's got good bones. I love all these phrases they throw out. So we had an investor that bought a house on the Beltline, I think, and they buy this house. They actually bought 3 of these, and they were dogs. They want us to do renovation designs, and they're going to renovate them, and they're going to put them on the market because everything on the Beltline is going for great money, and they're just going to make a killing, and it's going to be wonderful, and they're going to retire in Tahiti. So they bring us the 3 houses. And I said, well, guys, we need surveys. Huh? That was a great answer. Huh? I said, you need to show me what I've got to work with. I need to know first thing you see on a survey is something called a building setback or a building restriction line. There's a lot of different things. But basically, different zonings say you can build this close to the property line, 7 feet, 10 feet, whatever it is. And they'll have side restrictions, front restrictions, and back restrictions. 20 feet from the front, 30, 40 feet from the back, 7, 10 feet on the sides. That's the box on your property that you can build in. And there's a house on there already. This guy bought 3 of these pigs. So we got the surveys. Oh, my God. One house not only was encroaching on a building restriction line, it was 3 feet over the property line on the adjacent property. Not only could they not renovate the property, they were now in a lawsuit with the neighbors. Mm-hmm. And the neighbors had them by an uncomfortable place. And it was brilliant because it was so easily.
Had they had a survey, they
honestly
could have known not to purchase the property to begin with.
Yeah, but I don't know. We just walked away with them crying in their car. And that was pretty much the end of that because there was nothing to do. There was nothing that could be done with the houses. There was no renovation that could be done. There was nothing that could be done. Mm-hmm. And they were in a lawsuit with a neighbor who lived in a not terrific house, but now had serious leverage. This happens all the time. And we find houses that are much closer to the property line than you thought. It affects so many things. But again, personal experience as a professional, I got bitten by not having a survey. We have seen clients bitten by not having surveys, like this person who had invested money, and odds were they weren't going to get much back if they were lucky because they probably overpaid. All over, in the grand scheme of things, not much money. Minimally, $500-600 for a boundary survey, which would have said, don't do this, versus honestly, $12 or $15 or $2,000 for the full Monty, which will tell you, A, if there's nothing wrong, what can I do? So there's just so much information you get back. This is cheap money. So the moral of the story is get a survey, folks.
Yeah, and we can get into more of what surveys tell us when we have another episode.
Yeah, in the next episode we'll come back, and John will be able to talk more.
Maybe.
He's got a quota of words he's allowed to use a day, so he parses them very carefully.
Very carefully. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got to keep up with that.
I think that's a great place to stop for today, for this episode. So basically wrap it up. Like you said, just get a survey. It's
Really,
worth it.
just get a survey.
that simple.
and that, I don't care if you lived in the house 15 years, go get a survey. Get a survey. You need one now.
All right. Well, then, guys, you've been listening to Nuhaus Knows, where homeowners go when they need to know.
Hopefully
Bye.
they know a little
Oh,
more.
wait, no, don't say
Wait.
bye, because I see
Don't-
Demery's face, and she just reminded me of this today. We need your help. If you like us and you're listening to us, rate us, rank us.
Rate us everywhere you are listening to this. Spotify, Apple thing, Amazon Music. Look for a star or a number, but probably as a decimal, and then click that, and then choose the highest number possible. And
Because we're awesome and you
Yeah,
like us.
say that we're awesome.
And spread the word.
Yeah, tell your
Tell-
friends. Tell the people in the grocery line. I don't care. Tell people at your daycare. Anybody.
We aren't proud.
Oh, no.
Nope.
Yeah, no, we need your help, please.
Guerrilla marketing.
You just gotta do it.
All right. Well, then, I'm going to sign us off. Okay, bye.